Hello and welcome. I am your host of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Author Karen E. Osborne. I have five novels out. The latest is Justice for Emerson. I am so glad that you're here. This is a space for readers and writers to come together and talk about books. So I am so honored to have a new writer friend who is coming on today. I met her when I was a guest on her show. Please meet Teri M. Brown. Hey, Teri.
Hello, Karen. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, I'm so delighted to do it. So, Terry is a award-winning podcaster, and we're going to talk about that. She's also, though, an award-winning author, and we're going to talk about one novel, one children's book, and a memoir. And she got all of that done like in the last short time. So we just have to get rolling here. We got to get talking. So, tell us first about Online for Authors, your podcast. How did it come about? What made you start it? How old is it? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Online for Authors, I've been running it now for a year and a half. I started in January of 24. It was a podcast before. I had been on it. The woman, her name was Jennifer, reached out to me and said, "I'm
Mhm.
tired. I can't do podcasting anymore. I'm going to give, I think I'm going to give it up. But and before then, do you want to be a guest host for a while?" And I thought, oh, that sounds fabulous. So I started guest hosting. And then she said, yeah, I'm definitely giving it up. Do you want it? And my first thought was, no, I don't have enough time. Like, how am I ever going to fit all that in with everything else I'm doing? And then I heard from one of the guests that I had worked with his book. He wrote a memoir. It was a generational memoir about the Holocaust.
Mhm.
And he told me like an amazing job that I had done and how it really touched him and how he felt so heard and da 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 da. And I called Jennifer and I said, yes, I'm taking the podcast. For me, it's a way to reach out and connect with other authors like myself, indie authors, small publishers, those kinds of authors, and help them have a platform. And then it
Mhm.
helps my readers because I have a lot of people who kind of keep up with me and helps those people come up with other great authors to read. And
Yeah,
so for me, it's just a win-win all the way around. I get to meet great people and I get to introduce my readers to other authors that I think they'd enjoy.
that's exactly how I feel about this
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
It's just something that I enjoy doing, and I get to meet awfully wonderful people and so many books, so many books.
Exactly.
Uh, well, tell me one other thing. So, how so many writers, watch this podcast? I think I have more writer friends than I have like other friends.
Right, right.
So, how does one get to be a guest on your show?
Yeah, so seriously, just reach out to me. You can reach me at terry@terrymbrown.com, which is, a great email to reach me. You can go on to my website. There's a like a contact page. Just fill out the information and say, "Hey, I'm interested." And then I'll send you all of the information as to what it entails and how long it takes, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah,
Yeah, cool. That is very cool. So, you're also an award-winning and amazing author.
thanks.
And we have to squeeze in three
I know.
books here. We got to
So,
talk
so let's
about
be
three
fast.
books. So I want to start with your new children's book, your
Okay.
book for grandmas to buy for their grandchildren.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's called Little Lola and Her Big Dream. And I came up with this idea when I was riding across the United States on a tandem bicycle, which we'll get to in a few minutes.
Yes.
Um, but I didn't really see myself as a children's author. And then my granddaughter, who was 5 at the time, said, Gigi, when are you going to write a book for me? And
Mm.
I thought, well, now is exactly when I'm going to do it. So I kind of embarked on a whole new challenge because writing children's books is so different than writing
Mm.
an adult novel, right? And so it was just a very different experience, but I loved it. And I am loving being able to go out and do like library readings to the children. And oh, it's
Mhm.
just, it is so fun. But this book is about Lola, who is a train who thinks that she wants to grow up and become an astronaut train. And all of her friends tease her and tell her that there's no such thing. And so she goes and she speaks to other older trains and asks them what they did for a living. And so kids will learn a lot about different trains like freight engines and passenger engines. But in the end, Lola decides that she's going to stick with her dream. And what's really crazy is right after I wrote the book, an article came out and they're thinking of putting a train on the moon. So they are because they want to put a space station there. And so at the very end in my author's note, I said she can be a space train just like the picture she drew. And just like Lola, you can have big dreams too. So I just thought it was so amazing that I wrote this book and then they're now talking about having a space train.
That is so cool. So my youngest is 6. So this would be good
Yes.
for him.
Perfect. Absolutely. My granddaughter is 6 and she loves it. So
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's going to be my next, because you're right, grandmas will do anything for their
yeah,
grandkids,
they
anything.
do. They
And that
do. Yeah.
sounds so good. I'm always buying him books. Um, his mother says that please stop because she doesn't have enough space. Who says that? Who says
N-
that?
Not
Can't
about
have too many
books.
books. So then you said we're going to get to the 10 rules, but I really
Yeah.
want to talk about Daughters of Green Mountain first.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
is now you heard about a children's book. Now you're going to hear about historical fiction.
Right. So Daughters of Green Mountain Gap is a story that came about because I had a wart. And I went to my doctor for a regular checkup, and just while I was in there, I said, "Hey, can we freeze this off?" And she said, "No, I'm going to have to send you to a specialist,"
Hmm.
which I thought was crazy. And so I just went to CVS and got a little patch, and the thing fell off. Well, I was talking to my brother about it, and he said, "Why didn't you get someone to talk it off?" And I thought he was teasing me because I'd never heard such a thing before. And I'm very gullible. And so I didn't fall for it. But when I got off the phone, I had to look it up because I'm a research junkie. And
Hmm.
guess what? There are people who will talk to a wart and can make it fall off within a week. And then as I'm digging, I'm finding that there are people who can do all sorts of things like turn breech babies and talk a
Hmm.
burn out of a wound. And before long, I was in the mountains of North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains, and I was dealing with granny women. And granny women use roots and herbs and a little bit of mountain magic. And Maggie, the main character, was born in my head and started whispering a story to me. So it's about
Hmm.
3 generations of healers and how modern medicine kind of butted up against this traditional medicine that the granny women were doing, and how do they reconcile that?
That's, my family is from a lot of different places, but a good chunk of them are from the Caribbean and
Yes,
so believe in
yes.
herbal and spiritual
Yeah, like I said, there's
healing.
like a little bit of magic. It's not, I don't mean magic like, the cards disappear, but this ability that they believe that there's just more to healing than we understand. And I really believe there is. We know for a fact that people can take placebo pills and their pain
Yes,
goes away. So
yes.
there is more to the healing than we understand with modern medicine. And so I really enjoyed writing that book.
That is very cool. Are you going to do a sequel or anything to it?
People ask me that, and when I'm done with a book, I feel so done, but maybe I will. Like I actually have just written a short story that talks about the youngest character as an old woman. And so who knows? Maybe
Mm,
maybe that will turn into something.
maybe it'll turn.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I have no sequels. People ask me all the time, and I go, no,
Yeah.
it's sort of moved on,
Yeah, I
but I'm
when
wishing
I'm
them
done, I'm
well.
kind of done. I don't know. It's like they lived in my head for quite some time and now they're on their own and I go get someone else living in my head. But
Exactly.
yeah.
We just hope that they're doing okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
that they're flourishing out there. Um, and then let's talk about, and this I get emotional when we talk about this book. So first tell us about the adventure.
Yeah. So 10 Little Rules for a Double Butted Adventure came about because I had been in a horribly abusive relationship for 14 years and I got out of it and had never intended to be married again and wasn't going to date. And then I met Bruce and he just never went away. He tells everyone he chased me until I caught him. And during that time, I kind of felt like my life was over. And
Mm.
I just didn't know what I was going to do. And I didn't feel very confident and I didn't feel like I had any worth. And so all of a sudden, I had this idea that I wanted to do something big and bold, like walk the Appalachian Trail or just do something huge. And while we were starting to date, he said that he'd always wanted to ride across the United States on a bicycle. And as a woman who's not been on a bicycle in 40 years, I thought that would be an adventure. And right, and before long, we had decided that we were going to ride across the United States, but not just on a bicycle, on a tandem bicycle. So two-seater, which is why I call it a double-butted adventure. And we started in Astoria, Oregon in 2020, summer of 2020, so COVID summer. And we rode 3,102 miles to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And as we were coming up to the Marine Corps Memorial, which is where we stopped, my husband is a 25-year Marine veteran, and we were raising money for Toys for Tots, so it seemed like the perfect place to stop. And he said, "Do you see that flag? That's it. That's where we're stopping." And I started to laugh, and then I started to cry, and all I had this epiphany. I can do anything. I just rode across the United States on a tandem bicycle. It's not a matter of can I do it, but what do I want to do? And I thought, I
Mm.
want to be an author. And 14 months later, my first novel came out.
Wow. Wow.
So this book, 10 Little Rules for Double Butted Adventure, is not like a day by day, blow by blow. If you want that, I have a blog that I kept the whole way. You can find that on my website. But this is 10 rules about life that I learned during this ride. And I tell people you don't have to ride a tandem bicycle for this book to be of value to you. It's
Hmm.
do you want to live adventurously? Do you want to get outside of your box and do something a little bit beyond what you're used to? And if so, here are some things that I learned about taking an adventure, doing something big and bold and beyond what you normally would do.
And can you give us an example of a lesson?
Yeah, so one of them is never quit on a bad day. We
Mm.
had a horrible day. It was a 70-mile day, which 70 miles is a long way on a tandem bicycle. It was hot, it was hilly. We had huge mosquitoes. It was hot, it was hot, it was hot. Did I mention it was hot? And then on top of that, we had our flat tire not once, not twice, but three times. So by
Mm.
the end of this day, I was done. And I don't mean done for the day. I was done. I was done, done, done. And so I wrote the blog. And in my blog, I said, I think we may be done. You know, I'm not having fun. This is no fun. And I had a friend reach out to me who said, Terry, what you've done so far is amazing. You've made it over the Rocky Mountains on a tandem bicycle during COVID when everyone else is crammed in their house, afraid to go
Mm.
outside. What
Mm.
you've done is positively amazing. And if quitting is what you need to do, that's fine. But please don't quit today. You shouldn't quit
Mm.
on a bad day because you'll always wonder, could I have done it? He said, pull back, take a break, and then evaluate and see what you think. Well, the next day was a fabulous day. And
Mm.
of course, we did make it. So I did listen to that advice. And I've used that advice over and over. My husband was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer. And several times during that journey, he was done. He would be done. And I would tell him, it's okay to be done, but not today.
Mm.
You know,
Not
if you
today.
we'll talk about it in 3 or 4 days. And if you're still done, that's fine because quitting is always an option. I don't tell people, don't say don't quit, because sometimes
Mm.
quitting is exactly what you should do. Get out of the bad relationship, get out of the bad job, move to a new location. Like do things that you need to do. Quit what you're doing if it's not working for you, but don't do it when you're tired and hungry and emotional and unable to really make a good decision.
That's such good advice. Oh my goodness. That is amazing, amazing advice. So your husband got sick,
Yeah, he did.
and tell us a little bit about that and the
Yeah.
day that
So
the books.
Yeah, so he had glioblastoma, which is an incurable brain cancer. He was diagnosed in June of 22 and was told he would have about 8 months. And he's a Marine, so he doesn't listen to things like that. And he lived for just over 2.5 years. And he passed away in um, January 10th. And what's crazy is that I had been waiting to get my author copy of 10 Little Rules for Double-Butted Adventures. So he had seen the mock-up
Hmm.
and he knew the kinds of things that were in it, but he'd not seen the book yet. And I so wanted him to see it. And on the day that he passed at 3:30, and at 2 o'clock, my author copy came. And I started to shake. I couldn't even get it open. I was just shaking like a leaf. Got it open, took it to him. He didn't have his eyes open anymore, but I know he could hear me because his eyebrows would go up and down as I was talking. And I told him all about the book. And then I curled up in bed next to him and had my head on his shoulder, and I started reading the book to him.
Oh,
So we read the introduction, and I read rule number one, and I read rule number two, and then said, rule number three, do hard things. And he died
oh,
right as I finished that sentence. And I feel like it was me giving him permission to
to
do something
go.
that was very difficult because leaving was not something that he thought he was going to have to do. But I also realized that in the last 2 months of his illness, he wasn't able to speak anymore. The tumors and where his cancer was right in the speech center. And so he was able to say yes and no and a few words, but very few things. And I feel like this was also his last words to me, which were, for the next little bit, you're going
Mm,
to have to do hard things.
mm.
And it's something that it's now kind of my mantra. It's the thing that I remind myself of. There are many mornings where I get up and I think, I do not want to do anything today. I just want to crawl under my bed. And then I think, do hard things,
Do hard things.
do hard things. And
And there's
so
this
I,
voice in your head.
yeah, yeah. And so I get up and I do the hard things. And then if I need to go crawl back in bed, I do. But
Yes.
I go ahead and I get up and I do what needs to be done for the day because I know that he would be horribly disappointed in me if he thought that all I did was lay in bed and grieve because he
Mm,
wanted to make sure that I continued to live. And
mm,
so this book, it reminds me over and over and over again the things that I need to do to continue. So my new adventure is, how do I be me at 61 alone again? You know what I'm saying?
mm.
Like I'm reinventing myself one more time, and it wasn't something I had asked for. But
Yeah.
these little rules help me now, you know, continue to dream, you can do hard things, all of these kinds of things that help me remember who I am and to kind of stay grounded. So having the book come out when it did was absolutely fabulous.
How perfect, perfect
Yeah.
that was. And the don't quit on a bad day. I know as one mourns
Yeah.
and heals, there are bad days.
There are bad days, and it would be so easy to say, I'm never going to write again. I'm
Yes.
never going to podcast again. I'm never going to live again, whatever that living looks like.
Mhm.
And you know that that's not the day to make a decision like that.
Yeah. Such good.
That's a day where you just cry and you go ahead and you feel the feels, but you don't make decisions on those days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so powerful, Terry. That is
Thank you.
so powerful. So you guys have now heard of three amazing books that you're going to buy and that you're going to gift, right? These are great books to
They are
gift.
good gifts. Yeah.
Father's Day is coming up. I mean, these are things that you can do. I think Father's Day will have passed by the time this is aired, but it's a great time to gift. Anytime is good to gift. So this is what are you reading? What are you writing?
Right.
And you speak about your readers. I love how you think about your readers, how you think about your readers. And so I want you to love my readers
I do
and,
love your
and
readers.
give them some additional books that
Right.
might. Was there a book, an author who had a big impact on how you approach writing?
Not even really how I approach writing. I remember reading The Grapes of Wrath in high school. And for
Mm.
the first time, recognizing that an author was doing more than telling a story. They had they had more than a story in mind. They had a goal. They wanted you to understand life in some way. So most of my stories have some, like, it's a good story. And if that's all you're looking for, you'll get that. But if you are also looking for some life lessons or some, the moral of the story is kinds of things, I try to add that in my books. I always feel like books are a great way to talk about social issues of the day and things along that line. So
You and I have that
that in
absolutely in
common,
common.
right?
I make sure every one of my novels lifts some, besides being
Right,
entertaining and all of
right.
that, that it lifts some social justice or
Absolutely.
some aspect in their lives. I think I like that about you, and I like that about me. So, have you read something recently that you
So
could
I
recommend?
have such a list and it's so hard. Of course, yours. I absolutely love Justice for Emerson. That was
Oh,
a
thank
great
you.
book. I enjoyed that. But I'm going to give you a quick few. The Girl of Many Crowns by D.H. Morris. It's a historical fiction.
Mm,
Fabulous. Fairhaven by Laurie A. Egan. It's a mystery, another good one. The Angel Scroll. It's a women's fiction mystery. It's by Penelope Holt. Really good. Castaway on the Isle of Devils. It's a young adult historical fiction by Elizabeth Carson Williams. Those four recently have been ones that I really like. And then I'm going to tell people again, check out my Online for Authors podcast where I talk with authors. It's a great way. I mean, all of these books, when I read them, I then get the authors to come on and we have a good chat about them. So
yes, it's a wonderful podcast, Terry. You've taught me a
thanks.
lot, and you bring alive. You're so good to your authors, and you read their books. I'm so impressed
Yes.
with how many of them you read their books.
Yes.
I'm
And I
always
do. And
apologizing to my audience, like I didn't read this one,
yeah.
but
Yeah, no, and I do. I go and I read them all, which is why there's a bit of a waiting list, but I can only read so fast. And
right.
I think the authors appreciate the fact that I do take the time with them and know what it is that they've written. So
Oh, I know that they do. I certainly did, and I know that when I invite friends on that I've read their books, I'm more excited.
yeah, yeah.
No, I was like, oh, this is Terry. I want you to meet her because I love her
Yes,
writing. I love her book. So, so that part, you're right. I'm just gonna have to do better, Terry. I'm gonna have to do better. So everybody now is so in love with you. They want to watch your podcast. They want to read. And she has more books. We only talked about three, but she has more books. You just go to Terry M. Brown. You go on Amazon, you go to the library, you go to Barnes and Noble, you go to your local independent store, and if they don't have it on the shelf, they'll get it.
they will. Yeah.
But now, how do people get in touch with you?
The easiest way is to go to my website, which is my name, Teri M. Brown, and that's Terry with one R. So it's TERI Brown.com. There you can find, you can sign up for my newsletter, which I put out twice a week. You can see my online for authors. You can purchase books. You'll find all my social media links. And I even have a contact page if you just want to reach out and say hello that way. So
That's perfect. So please, guys, go to Terry M. Brown, go to her website. And two things, I have two requests. When you write her, please let her know that you met her on what are you reading, what are you writing, and when you finish her books, write a review.
oh,
We
absolutely.
love
Thank
and
you.
appreciate that so much. Thank you, Terry, and thank all of you for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.